In the absence of Mayor Miller, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:08. The mayor will be marked as absent. Alderpersons Clem.
Here.
Monroe. Simmons. Parker.
Here.
Stacy.
Here.
Shadle and Sanders are both absent. Sellers.
Here.
Just a second here, my recorder's not working, okay? Alderperson Clem has offered to chair the meeting. Could I have a motion to that effect? Alderperson Parker moves.
Second.
Second by Alderperson Monroe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. It's yours.
Alderman Sellers, could you lead the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We didn't have the prayer.
Oh, that is my fault. I'm
Linda,
sorry.
no, please continue on. Thank you very much.
Okay. Let us pray. Dear holy and righteous Father, we thank you that your name is above every name. You are the great I am, and everything is in you, through you, and to you. Holy Spirit, we welcome you here to sharpen our senses, open our eyes, open our ears that we might see, open our ears that we might hear, and our eyes that we might see what is to be done here. Release discernment and wisdom for every decision. Cause every decision to be made in accordance with your will and your plans for this city. We apply the blood of Jesus to and cancel every plan that is against your desire for us. We welcome your presence and ask for the light of your truth to shine forth. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Alderman Monroe, second Alderman Sellers. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We have approval of minutes for the regular meeting to January 16th and special meeting on January 19th. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Parker and Alderman Monroe. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Public comments. Linda Johnson?
Okay, this is regarding the ordinance amending Chapter 806. I would like council to consider not putting this through. I have attended many of the city council meetings in the past 3 to 4 years, and am very concerned that many times when there are discussions regarding attracting people to Freeport, the attraction centers around alcohol. One example of this is on the agenda for tonight's meeting, the ordinance to increase festivals downtown, which has to deal with increasing the number of gatherings where people can walk around on the streets consuming alcoholic beverages. Another example is the Lindo wanting to serve alcohol at the movie theater. Is alcohol the main attraction to draw people to downtown or to our city? That is a sad thought. We need to draw people because we have great schools, great parks, things to do for our youth that are productive, because we know how to build families and care for each other. We want to be known as a caring community with good homes, family values, job opportunities, and training for all people. Many are working in the community toward decreasing violence, gun violence in the community. When we as a city promote alcohol use, we are promoting a drug that has been shown to impair judgment and lead to violence and or abuse. Alcohol is a drug. Some people can control its use, some cannot. It was reported by the Liquor Commission that there were no related alcohol issues during last year's festivals. Maybe none occurred on the streets, but what about in cars or after people got home? We have no way of knowing that. A few statistics from the American Addiction Centers and Traffic Safety are: alcohol or drug abuse is involved in 40 to 60% of domestic abuse situations. Each year, about 300,000 victims of violent assaults report their attackers are under the influence of alcohol. Even a small amount of alcohol can affect driving ability. In 2021, 2,266 people were killed in alcohol-related crashes, where a driver had a blood alcohol concentration of 0.01 to 0.07. grams per deciliter of blood. What kind of an example are we setting for the generations following us? Do we want to set the example that you cannot have a festival without having people walking around with alcohol? I'm asking the council to vote no on increasing the festivals to 18 and to not allow alcohol to the movie theater. It is very sad to think that a 1.5-hour movie cannot be watched without consuming alcohol. Why do we as a city want to promote the things that have the potential to increase what we are trying to decrease? What kind of example are we setting for our future generations? Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Neely Erickson.
Thank you, Alderman Clem and esteemed council members. I am Neely Erickson, Government Affairs Director for Northwest Illinois Alliance of Realtors, here with our chapter president, Ashley Heilman, on behalf of 1,200 Realtor members. Realtors welcome the creation of a Human Relations Commission with fair housing regulation oversight, although we would like to point out a few topics for thought. Under Section 270.01, Establishment Purpose Declaration of Policy, and throughout the ordinance, there are specific protected classes that are listed. The protected classes of source of income and immigration status are not included in your fair housing ordinance. We encourage inclusion of those protected classes, and therefore all of the protected classes you have listed in your ordinance will align with the Illinois Human Rights Act. As your planner indicated in the Human Relations Commission and Fair Housing Regulations memo, the current Freeport Housing Ordinance was significantly deficient in the essential safeguards that are required by the federal government. Realtors encourage the council to direct staff to further examine fair housing deficiencies with Freeport's crime-free housing ordinances. In 2020, the Illinois Human Rights Act was amended to add arrest record to the list of protected classes in a real estate transaction. This means that it is a violation of the act to refuse to lease or continue a lease based solely on the fact that the tenant was accused but not convicted of the criminal behavior. The interpretation is summarized in the Illinois Human Rights Commission Fair Housing Implications of Nuisance and Crime-Free Ordinances, a guide for units of local government released in 2003. Freeport's crime-free housing ordinance places a housing provider in a fair housing trick bag. Either comply with the local crime-free housing ordinance to avoid penalties or violate the arrest record protection in the Fair Housing Act, causing them to face investigation, fines, penalties, and a property manager or realtor overseeing those properties can lose their real estate license. Thank you.
Neely, if you could you get a copy of that to us, of what you said, just simply so we have the things that you mentioned? I would appreciate it. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda are considered to be routine in nature and will be enacted in one motion. There will be no separate discussion on any of these unless a council member requests. In the event, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in the first item after approval of the consent agenda. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda? Yes.
I have questions
Yes, Alderman
for the
Steve.
consent agenda.
Hang on one second before you, Alderman Clem, why don't you go ahead and read all the items then that are to be on the consent agenda, and then after that, Alderman Stacy can ask her question there so that we have it in the record what's on the
Not a
consent
problem.
agenda.
Approval and receive and place on file committee, board, and commission minutes for the Building Commission, the Board of Fire and Police Commissioners, the Public Library Board, Liquor Commission, Freeport Housing Authority, monthly report, Greater Freeport Partnership report to the mayor and city manager, building permit report, police department report, adoption of resolution 24-17 for temporary closure for streets for the parade. Adoption of resolution 24-18, resolution for emergency purchase of snowplow. Approval of finance bills. Approval of payroll for pay period January 13th on of the tune, for the amount of $536,846.15, and approval of payroll period for ending January 24th, $483,729 with fringe benefit. You still have a question, Alderman Stevens?
Okay, so we would need a motion in a second and then the question.
Okay. Take a motion and a second, and then we'll discuss.
So move.
Alderman Sellers,
Second.
Alderman Parker, Alderman Stacy.
Yes, I have questions about, on this, as I went through some of the consent agenda, it had inspections and demos. How do we tell what was spent on inspection compared to what was spent on demos when they're put together like that as one?
I didn't see it on there.
Director?
This is the consent agenda. I
Which
opened
number,
it up.
which letter, so we'll see it?
Which letter are you at, Alderman Stacy?
In the upper right-hand corner, it should have a cross-reference number, like 4AB or 4AD.
I believe it's in 4D. I had several things, and so I'm not on no one. However, do we not know what was inspections and what was demos?
Director Richter?
Alderperson Stacy, are you referring to the bills that are to be paid?
Yes.
Okay, so the report that's run is one invoice per line. So if the words that you're reading are under the description, is that where you're looking? That particular company must have done both. Do you know what page?
It's a
4D.
lot of pages. I don't know which page that would be on.
Okay,
Or do you have a vendor name?
so if, for example, Monroe Truck Equipment, payable number 1552708 and 09. One was a dump body repair, and one was a dump box body repair. They both was $29,164. What is that, and what's the difference?
I'd just like to weigh on that. Monroe Truck is up to the north in Monroe. They do a lot of our repair work, and we had two dump bodies for the dump trucks budgeted to be replaced in 2023, and that would most likely be that one. I don't have it in front of me, but that's when we do a dump body replacement. So
Okay.
that when the dump bodies get rusted out, they need to be replaced, and we had several of them. We had two last year that I believe rusted out at the hinges and were replaced under emergency authorization, and then we had two budgeted. So that'd be my best guess on that one without having it in front of me.
I would also believe they came before the council also.
Okay, so dump bodies and dump box bodies are the same.
Essentially, yes. Yes.
Okay, I also had a question about the airport liability insurance, payable number 23473. $7,447. How often do we pay that?
Once a year.
Christopher Ingram, number 3 and 4, payable number 3 and 4, tree removal. Where did we have, is this for the whole year of 2023? Or is this,
Darren, do you wanna?
Area tree bills are from the tree removal program for the year. Those are his 2 final bills that we were processing for trees that he took down at the end of the year.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, there was J.A. Larson, payable number 4251, City Hall painting. Where did we paint?
Michelle,
There were various areas here in City Hall that we painted downstairs. There's touch-up paint that was done kind of up and down the steps. There was a lot of areas in City Hall that was touch-up because it scuffs and cracks and all kinds
there
of.
was also work done in the lower level from some water damage.
Okay.
Are there any others? Accept a motion for approval? We already have that? We need a roll call vote.
Sellers,
Yes.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
Okay, the next item is second reading of an ordinance amending Chapter 806, increasing festival district days from 12 to 18, presented by Manager Blair.
Thank you, Your Honor. In late 2020, the city adopted Section 806.22, allowing festival district events in the downtown business district. For the past 3 years, the district has enjoyed great success, bringing much-needed foot traffic to our downtown establishments. Due to this success, the current limit of 12 events is insufficient to meet demand. Additional events are being requested but cannot couple with the festival district designation due to the 12 event limit. Rather than limit the number of events bringing people into our downtown, the Liquor Commission is recommending expansion of the dates from the current 12 to 18 to accommodate the increase in demand. Staff is recommending the City Council adopt attached ordinance as presented.
Any discussion? Madam Alderman Sellers?
I understand that we have to have things to promote our community, and I do agree with the young lady that spoke about the festival district, you know, because I'm not one that, I mean, I like to have a cocktail every now and then myself, but I'm not one to walk around showing and doing that. So I do understand that. Why do we have to walk around and let our children see that? I do understand that concept. But I also want to get an understanding of why would we want to increase the festival district, but we have a problem with the BYOB and how many events they can have and changing that whole process out. What is the difference in, you know, I know you say that it's with the police and monitoring all that, but what's the difference in monitoring, you know, people walking all over versus walking just in one section? Yes.
BYOB establishments do not participate in the festival district, just licensed bars.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm asking, why do they want to discontinue the BYOB or give them only certain amount, you know, they can only have so many events, but they want to up these events and do that. It's not leveling off to my understanding. That's why I want to understand more about what they want to do with the BYOB and the increasing of the festivals.
The BYOB is not related to the festival district because they do not participate.
Okay.
Alderman Stacy.
So why are the BYOBs limited to how many events they can host?
The BYOB is not part of this discussion.
Oh,
The
okay.
discussion is on the number of
Okay, I get it.
festivals.
Uh-huh.
The BYOB is a separate item that I would suggest anybody that has any questions attend the Liquor Commission on Thursday at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
No at this time.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
No.
Simmons. Parker,
Aye.
Stacy.
No.
We are tied at 3-3, so the motion fails for lack of majority.
Okay, next item is second reading of ordinance 2024-07, amending codified ordinances regarding standards for structures utilizing intermodal shipping containers, presented by Director Duckman.
I think we skipped one, Chair.
At number 6.
Yep.
Number 6.
That's good. Art Commission.
Pardon me, I'm green at this, I apologize. Second reading of ordinance 2024-06, ordinance creating citywide art commission. Library Director, please.
At our last meeting, we had the first reading, and I'll repeat the memo. At the Committee of the Whole meeting in December, I presented a draft ordinance of the creation of the Arts and Culture Commission for the City of Freeport. Tonight, the final draft the ordinance is ready for your approval. To create the ordinance, I researched what other communities have in their ordinances and activities their commissions do, use language similar to our ordinances, talked to committee members, key stakeholders, and met with the mayor and alderperson Sellers. As a reminder, the commission has two primary goals focused in arts and culture. First, to increase the public's awareness in all visual and fine arts, including but not limited to exhibition of sculpture, painting, mosaics, photography, murals, and video, and also to increase cultural awareness and elevate the diversity within our community. There is no financial commitment, and the staff recommends approving the ordinance to create the Art and Culture Commission for the City of Freeport.
It's open for discussion. We had some public comments earlier that I'd like to make sure that Linda gets to you just for some informational purposes, so you can take that as you move forward.
Yes.
Is there any other discussion? Alderman Stacy.
I'd like to make a motion that we hold off on this and move it to the COW for further discussion.
We have a motion. Do we
I
have-
would second that.
We have a motion and a second. We will move it on to the,
You got to vote on that motion to lay over.
Is a voice vote okay on that, Attorney Zito?
Go ahead and do it by roll.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
no.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Parker,
No.
Stacy.
Aye.
2 for the ayes have it, 4-2. It will move to, I take it you mean the March cow?
Tomorrow.
Right.
I mean,
Oh, February cow yet.
Next
We do have another chance, thank you.
Okay, We'll see that motion on February cow then. Thank you very much. Ordinances first reading. Let's see, mixed structures. Now we go
It's
back
number
to
7
structures,
again.
I'm sorry.
We're on number 7.
Second reading, 2024-07, ordinance called for codified ordinances regarding standards for structures utilizing intermodal shipping containers. Director Duckman, we'll try again.
Sounds good. Thank you, Alderperson Clem. We had our first reading on this ordinance on January 15th, and it was there was a motion made to move it forward to today's hearing or today's meeting. And just wanted to say that this little background here, just to reiterate, it's a staff reviewed the building code being deficient for shipping containers being used as typically restaurants or other types of commercial structures. We talked to Rockford. They had a few that they'd used and kind of studied their building code and what they were doing to kind of review that process. And we thought, due to an increase of interest in businesses coming in wanting to utilize this type of construction, we wanted to investigate and put forward a ordinance that would allow for a more efficient and effective review process of this type of structure. And on January 10th of 2024, this went to our building commission, and they recommended approval with a vote of 6-0 with 0 abstentions. And in line with the building commission, staff is recommending approval of this ordinance.
Any discussion? Alderman Monroe.
Thank you, Alderman Clem. This is for staff. You know, it kind of comes to the question. I know a lot of people are starting to use these for homes, those types of designs. Is that something that we really have comprehensively included in this, besides just a single container, but multiple containers?
Well, I'll answer that. I anticipate us investigating this further and building that into our zoning code. That's how I anticipate that happening more often and more as a use. But in terms of this current ordinance, we're focusing mainly on the interest in commercial structures.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Clerk Anderson, would you like to take the vote?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons. Parker,
Aye.
Stacy,
Abstain.
the motion passes 5-0 with 1 abstention.
Next ordinance is first reading of ordinance 2024-08, ordinance approving the city to enter a lease agreement with Freeport Solar North LLC and Freeport Solar South LLC regarding solar facilities at Landfill 2 and 3. Presented by Manager Boyer. If you will remember, this has been presented to us at the COW before.
Thank you, Your Honor. In 2017, the City of Freeport initiated a lease option for the installation of a solar array on landfills 2 and 3. In 2023, Amoresco expressed interest in formalizing the lease agreement for both sites. Subsequently, the City Council authorized the required ordinance variation related to the project's electrical interconnect in December of 2023, and the lease term for the solar array on these landfills has been set at 40 years. Amoresco has presented the lease agreements for landfill 2 and 3. These arrangements have undergone extensive review by the city manager, city attorney, landfill engineer, and assuming alignment with the initial 2017 lease agreement. Amoresco has agreed to include all necessary performance and maintenance bonds, insurance, and other contractual elements to address the city's concerns regarding protection and liability. Key features of the agreement include constructing 2 new entrances to the landfill, erecting new fencing, and assuming annual maintenance responsibilities within the leased areas, including tasks like mowing. Additionally, Amoresco will furnish 100% decommissioning bond for the full removal of the solar system at the end of the lease period, and the city maintains the right to approve any sale or transfer of the lease. The endorsement of these contracts will mark the beginning of the solar array project's construction phase, anticipated to last between 12 and 18 months. The city is set to receive annual lease payments totaling $16,500, with $9,750 for the south landfill and $6,750 for the north landfill. Staff recommends the City Council approve the Amoresco lease agreement for landfill number 2 and 3.
Could we get a motion and a second to put it on the floor for discussion?
So moved.
Stacy, did you want a second, or do we have a second? Alderman Parker. Okay, discussion. Alderman Stacy.
Where is landfill 2 and 3?
On South Walnut Road, but go ahead.
Yes, South Walnut Road near the intersection with Lamb Road. across from the nursing home.
Do we have appropriate lighting out there where it's gonna make a difference?
Go ahead, Director.
As far as lighting is concerned, it will be Amoresco's job to determine whether or not they need additional lighting. So at this current time, that's really up to the leasee to determine for themselves.
Okay, is this the same people in other areas we have received solar from?
Go ahead.
No, this is a different company. We've received solar at the wastewater treatment plant from Safari Energy, and this is a different company than that.
Okay, I read a lot of the lease and how they're committed to taking care of this area and cleaning up this area. However, you know, that's a big concern of mine because of what happens on the east side of town. They're in the lease, they're supposed to come out and keep it at a certain level. And as you know, every summer, it's just a bunch of weeds taller than me, out of control. What's gonna keep us from having that same?
City Manager?
Outside of the decommissioning bond, there's another $500,000 bond. So if all those panels, if they're not meeting their agreement and they all have to be removed, there's another $500,000 per landfill to remove all that and put it back the way it was.
But would we as a city hold them accountable? Because we have it on the east side.
We will hold them accountable.
Alderman Sellers.
Now, this isn't the same one, company that wanted to do the underground?
It is.
This is, okay. I also, I know in another, solar, conversation that I heard that sometimes these solar companies will go up and, you know, they're there and then they're bought out by somebody else running the solar. Is there any way in that agreement that we still can hold the next, person just as liable as this one? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Alderman Monroe.
You know, I think we've laid out, you know, most of the, you know, how this will go after the installation. My question is the heavy equipment that's going to be going in to install all of this, what's the risk of breaking through that cap? Because I know the cap is quite thin in some areas. Have we taken that into account?
Go ahead, Mayor.
We have. As I mentioned before, they're supplying $500,000 performance bond. So if there's any damage to the cap or everything, if something fails, they will have to remove their equipment and repair it.
Alderman Stacy.
Okay, I'm gonna go back a step in alignment with what Alderman Sellers said. So, if it was to switch hands, would we have a choice of not being held at the same standards under new hands? Did that make sense?
If there was a transfer of ownership, the new owner would be held to the same requirements as Amoresco. So this agreement would carry forward.
Yes, Mr. Zito. Jump right in.
To help also to piggyback off of what the city manager said, there's a provision in the lease on page 19. It's called a successors and assigns provision, which basically says that the terms of this agreement basically apply to anyone else who comes afterwards. So a new company that takes the steps into the shoes of this Amoresco, they have to be held to the same provisions that are in the lease. So they inherit this lease.
Okay, so in other words, we would still have to be held at our standard, even though it has switched hands.
Right, so whatever obligations we city have under this lease continue on. Whatever obligations the tenant had, whether it's this tenant, Amoresco, or a new tenant, that inherits this lease, everyone's got to live up to the same provisions.
So if we commit to the 40 years, no matter if it's switched 4 times.
Oh,
we
different
still-
councils
Yeah, no.
or different administrations or different tenants. Yeah.
Different tenants.
Yeah.
We still are committed to that 40 years.
Yes. Unless there's some other provision or something else that happens that causes us to be able to terminate the lease, yes. Assuming everyone's still doing what they're supposed to do, no one's in breach of the lease, then yeah. Even if it
Okay.
changes hands, it's still because of that successors and assigns provision.
This is just for information. This particular item has gone back to a previous city manager. It's not as though this started yesterday. This was signed into place by a city manager before Mr. Blair, so. So, we've got enough to move that to the next, yes. Okay. Darren?
I was just gonna say, as part of the lease, the city has to approve a sale of the property, so that way we would know that the agreement would be, the current agreement would be with the new owners. There's a provision in there that the city would get to review a sale, which we learned from the wastewater one. And there's actually assignment in that one, but the language in here is much stronger. And City Manager Boyer is the one that led the charge to get the maintenance and performance bond on the contractor at the landfill. So that maintenance and performance bond will allow us, if they don't perform, to hire a third party to perform and make them pay for it.
Okay.
Just a clarification, Darren? And that is not on the one at the, currently at the water treatment plant, right?
Yes, however, we made a lot of legs on the one at the wastewater treatment plant last year, and we hope that that issue is permanently resolved and will not be a thorn any longer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one more.
Alderman Sellers.
I know that we had talked about this company, and how many jobs did they say that they would bring to this? Can you?
City Manager.
You can't?
I do not remember precisely. Aside from the construction jobs that are going to happen immediately, I don't know if there'll be any long-term jobs there.
I know they just said something about jobs, that's why.
Any other discussion? Okay, we'll move to item number 9, first reading of ordinance 2024-09, ordinance amending the codified ordinances establishing standing Human Relation Commission and Fair Housing Regulations and amending Chapter 270 Fair Housing Human Relation Commissions, presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Alderperson Clem. Given some background here, staff submitted in 2023 an application for the Rural Development Housing Preservation Grant. And this is from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And the grant application we submitted was for a total of $140,000. And what this grant would provide would be a maximum of $50,000 to rehabilitate a house for low income, for somebody who can prove low income within the city of Freeport. And so in this process, we received a letter stating that we had a few items we needed to provide. And so essentially the funding was put on hold, and we would probably have to go do another grant application. But in coming back to us, they gave us a good amount of work and what we would have to do to be eligible for this type of a grant. And there's 2 parts here. This particular agenda item is going to address the Human Relations Commission as well as the Fair Housing Ordinance. And then later on in agenda item 16, I'm going to be talking about the Language Assistance Program. So 2 separate items in this memorandum, but focusing on the Human Relations Commission, essentially what I'm suggesting to be moved forward is, and I attach the ordinance and can certainly answer questions here, but some highlights here is we've created this ordinance, and it's essentially an anti-discrimination ordinance for practices from leasing. You know, it serves to fight against discrimination in leasing or selling of property. And by establishing a Human Relations Commission, to summarize, it would be 9 people or 9 committee members appointed by the mayor and approved by council. And the process essentially would work was that if somebody who believed they were involved in a discriminatory practice from a real estate transaction, lease, sale, etc., they would then file a petition to my department, and we would then work through the process of having a hearing to be heard on that accusation. And so, that being said, it's a long ordinance. I can certainly answer any particular questions for it. So, but staff's recommendation is to move this forward.
We need a motion and a
So
second.
move.
We have a motion from Alderman Sellers. Second. Don't everybody speak at once.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Move it forward for discussion. Any discussion? Alderman Monroe.
I've looked this over. I'm not seeing any language in here that current residents of the city of Freeport would get equal funding from government services for rental assistance. So I know the current migrants that are coming to the city of Freeport are getting a significant amount of money. I've got real concerns that that is unfair treatment of the people that have lived here their whole lives, and are struggling with rents, struggling with the cost of living here now. What are we doing to protect them?
Well, I can't speak to that. This ordinance is meant to give somebody an opportunity if they feel like they've been discriminated against, living here or other, they would then petition to my department to have a hearing, to be heard, and then asking for action. Now, I do want to state that in this ordinance, as it's written, this is not for criminal activity. So if there's some sort of criminal activity going on, the committee would not hear it. But the idea behind this ordinance is somebody would say, I tried to apply for a lease, I felt discriminated against, or I tried to buy a house, this real estate agent won't submit an offer. They're not pursuing criminal charges, but they're asking for some relief from the city, and then essentially they would have to go to a hearing. That there would be a recommendation from that committee that would go to council, and ultimately you and with your other council members would vote on it. I'm not so sure that this ordinance would, we would hear anybody's non-criminal complaint, is what I'm getting at. That's how this ordinance is written.
Any other discussion? We'll move it on to the next meeting. Now we move into resolutions. Item number 11.
You forgot another one, number 10.
Get done fast.
I think he is.
Pardon me, folks. First reading of ordinance number 2024-10, ordinance amending employee handbook, presented by Manager Blair.
Thank you, Your Honor. Annually, the Human Resource Manager and Department heads work with the city attorney to review the employee handbook. This year, there are mostly minor changes in the handbook. These changes are listed as attached. There's no financial impact, and staff recommends moving forward with ordinance 2024-10 for second reading. I can list some of the revisions in section 6.9, change number 6, first sentence from leaves employment within 2 years to leaves employment within 3 years, and change second sentence from leaves employment within 3 years to leaves employment within 4 years. Of course, it doesn't help without the rest of it, but change 4 sentence from any department head hired after the start of the year shall have his or her executive leave prorated in accordance with the hire date, to any department head or designated management employee hired after the start of the year shall have his or her executive leave prorated in accordance with the hire date. Change 5, sentence from request to use executive leave shall be submitted to the city manager for approval prior to use, to executive leave shall be submitted to the city manager or individual supervisor for approval prior to use. And then in section on page 54, section 8.11, this reflects the change we made earlier this year regarding the seasonal workers. So at all seasonal and temporary employees shall accrue paid leave at the rate of 1 hour per every 40 hours actually worked. Employees shall be allowed to carry over up to 40 hours of paid leave annually for a total of 80 hours of paid leave, but usage is limited to 40 hours per year. The annual period shall run from the employer's date of hire to the next anniversary date. And then page 79, section 11.17, under appropriate circumstances for remote work, first paragraph, change first sentence from all remote work must be approved by the individual's manager or city manager to all remote work must be approved first by an individual supervisor and then by human resource manager or city manager. Section 11.17, under appropriate circumstances for remote work, fourth paragraph, change first sentence from permission to work remotely can be revoked at any time by an individual supervisor or the city manager to permission to work remotely can be revoked at any time by an individual supervisor, the human resource manager, or the city manager. And change the second sentence from an employee may voluntarily terminate, participate in telework with a proper written notice at least 1 week in advance to their supervisor and or city manager. To an employee may voluntarily terminate participating in telework with proper written notice at least 1 week in advance to their supervisor and human resource manager or city manager. And section 11.17, under appropriate circumstances for remote work, fifth paragraph, change one sentence from possible circumstances where remote work would be allowed to include but also not limited to, with supervisor and or city manager approval, to possible circumstances where remote work would be allowed include but are not limited to, with the supervisor, human resource manager, or city manager approval. And the change the fourth bullet point in the paragraph from other circumstances approved or instructed by supervisor or city manager to other circumstances approved or instructed by supervisor and human resource manager or city manager. And I'd like to yield my time. Aaron, if you have something you want to jump in on that, that'd be fine.
Just if there are any questions, but I think before we can get into any discussion, there needs to be a motion in a second.
I was just going to say that these have all been approved, sure been approved with HR and with the unions that are involved in that stuff. But we need a motion and a second to open up for discussion.
So moved.
Alderman Parker
Second.
and Alderman Monroe. Any discussion? Alderman Stacy.
What union does this involve?
Actually, it doesn't involve the union. This is the changes to the employee handbook. So these are changes to the people that are non-bargaining,
Non-bargaining?
because it's to the employee handbook.
Alderman Monroe.
And this brings us in line with the state of Illinois' new requirements.
Yes, so the one paragraph that city manager referenced about the Paid Leave for All Workers Act there. So obviously we approved that ordinance earlier in the year or end of last year there. Now this physically updates the employee handbook to put that ordinance into effect.
Any other? Alderman Stacy.
Are the city employees that this will affect, are they in agreement with this?
I don't think I can speak to that. I have not spoken to any of the city employees, but
I'll be happy to answer that. Alderman Stacy, these are mostly changes adding in the human resources as in the chain of command in terms of getting things approved and whatnot. As far as the paid leave for temporary and seasonal employees, that was carried over for the employee or the act that we approved earlier, previously mentioned by Attorney Zito. So as far as the employees, these are minor changes that we do make tweaks to it each year regardless, and there's not a real formal process for employees to approve the changes in the employee manual. That is, these are fairly minor, and I don't expect there would be any issues with those.
Okay, we'll see this at the next council meeting. Now we're in the resolution. Resolution approving agreement with MSA Professional Services to provide CDBG Housing Rehabilitation Grant Services View Memo presented by Director Duckman. This is the one that you had mentioned before.
Yeah, thank you, Alderperson Clem. So, give a little background here. The city of Freeport has received $550,000 or been approved for $550,000 in funding by the Community Development Block Grant funded by HUD. And this goes back to 2021. And basically, this is what is commonly known as our Housing Rehabilitation Grant along Adams Avenue. And so there's been quite a bit of work that has gone on previously, and I mentioned this in the memorandum. We've worked with the Region 1 Planning Council to administer this grant. They've helped us in basically surveying the community that would be eligible for this grant. They've helped us to gather their income information. They've also began the process of working with the State Historic Preservation Committee. And essentially, they've ran out of resources to continue to help us, meaning staffing resources. This is a large grant with a large amount of implementation required. So the city planner, Lorena Rothel, myself, we went down to Springfield, had a meeting with a grant manager, talked to a couple other consultants, and kind of worked out where MSA has experience in this type of grant, and we went through, talked to the grant manager, we went through the proper procedures to make sure we properly solicited bids, and ultimately we came up working with, presenting to you today, selecting MSA to implement this grant further and to kind of bring it to the finish line. And they submitted a price to us of $27,500. And I want to make note that this grant will be refundable through, this proposal for grant administration services is reimbursable through the grant. So staff recommends approval of this resolution.
Could we get a motion and a second?
So move.
Put it on the floor.
So move.
Motion by Alderman Sellers, second.
Second.
By Alderman Parker. Go ahead.
I have a question. The reimbursement, is that in addition to the amount of the grant or out of the grant?
Right. So essentially, it would be $550,000 minus $27,500 for grant administration services.
Okay, but we need the grant administrators in order to even get the grant started and rolling?
They're helping us. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was done.
They're helping us with these administrative services, and we've worked. We had Region 1 working with us previously. They came to us. They're great to work with, but they came to us and said, as you're moving through this process, you're going to want to find a different consultant because we're struggling with some of the requirements. They didn't have the experience or the staff to kind of bring it through. They were transparent and honest, and then we went to Springfield to meet with their grant administrator, the grant manager, with the state, and we kind of came up with this plan to hire MSA to help us get to the finish line with this grant.
Any other question? And Region 1 is planning is the outfit out of Rockford, basically. And where is MSA out of?
They're out of Wisconsin, Baraboo, Wisconsin. And they're a private firm. That's why we had to solicit bids. We solicited bids. We followed the procedures that HUD requires. We followed those procedures for soliciting bids, and MSA has the experience and moved forward with it.
Thank you very much.
One more.
Alderman Sellers.
I'd just like to know how many homes did you actually get to connect with this grant?
Well, we reached out to everybody on the list. That was with Region 1. We took every form from phone calls to knocking on doors, mailers, and we documented with Region 1 anybody that had applied for this grant back in 2021. We documented all the forms of how we tried to contact them. So we have that, yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and then I'd like to know, once we have MS a professional start with the program, how long will we or the homeowners start to see where they can get their homes
Yeah,
done?
it's a great question. It's a great question. I'm truly hopeful that, in selecting when we heard the news from Region 1, it was obviously painful because we really wanted to push forward with some rehabilitation last summer. That was a goal. But working with Region 1, who worked diligently with us, they just said it wasn't going to happen. And when they said that they were running out of steam on it, we said, okay, we need to find somebody who can do this. And so we're confident working with MSA that we're hopeful that we can see some relief and some rehabilitation this summer, spring and summer.
Director Duckman, appreciate your work on this moving forward, because this could be very beneficial to us. So, Madam Clerk, or,
I just have a question.
sure.
In moving this forward, it goes to the council meeting the third Monday?
This is a resolution, and if it's voted for, it's voted to accept, we accept it. If it's voted down, we vote it down. So
Okay,
this will be the final look at this.
resolution, okay.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
And once again, thank you for your work on that.
You're welcome.
Next item is item number 12, Resolution 2024-20, resolution approving the purchase of portable handheld radios from Motorola for the police department. Chief Schoenberger.
Thank you. Freeport Police Department is currently in year 4 of a 5-year plan to replace the portable handheld Motorola radios currently being utilized by all sworn police officers. The Freeport Police Department has, up to this point, replaced 23 portable handheld Motorola radios. These radios, along with the radios in circulation, still function. However, they've reached their end of life. At this time, Motorola is the only supplier of portable handheld police radios. The police department has received a quote to replace 10 Motorola portable handheld radios and accessories at a total cost of $64,885.50. By purchasing these 10 radios, the police department would have to purchase 15 more radios in 2025 to have completely replaced the radios that have reached their end of life. The funding for this purchase has already been budgeted. It's in this year's budget under the fiscal year 2024 PD capital budget, line item 331-30270.
Do we have a motion and a second? We have a motion from,
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
okay, second from Alderman Parker. Any discussion? Alderman Monroe.
Chief, what are we doing with the radios we're replacing?
Right now, we're hanging on to them. The ones that we're replacing, I believe they reached their end of life in 2012 or 2013. And so Motorola, what they basically do when they deem that is they give you 5 years up until that point. Then after that 5 years, which the ones that we're replacing would be 2018, then they won't service them, they won't repair them or anything. So you're basically at the mercy. You could say that they have a monopoly on radios, and even the frequency which they operate on, the Starcom, I mean, they're the proprietary owners of that as well, so.
Any other questions? Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
Next item is resolution number 2024-23, resolution approving the second amendment to purchase a service agreement with Senior Resource Center, presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Alderperson Clem. So, give some background here. This is in reference to the Pretzel City Area Transit. And the Pretzel City Area Transit receives funding through a grant known as 5311. It's approximately $500,000 that helps fund that program. And they have a triannual audit. And as part of that audit, because they're using federal funds, they're subject to an audit. And our funding, RLS and Associates was the organization doing the audit, and they brought to our attention where we have to add certain language that the Federal Transit Authority is now requiring in its contracts. And so it's roughly 15 pages, mostly boilerplate language, updates to federal policy that they want to see on our agreements, our service agreements. And based on this information, staff is recommending approval of this resolution.
Do we get a motion and a second to put it on the floor, please?
So move.
Alderman Sellers,
Second.
Alderman Parker. Is there any discussion? I'd just like to add, I've been involved from the time I was at Malcolm Eaton with the 5311 grant, coming forward and all this, and working on getting Pretzel City Transit, help getting it started, and it's been a great asset to us and for many elderly people that rely on it for rides to doctor's offices, et cetera. So, hey, thank you for your work, all your work in keeping it moving forward. Madam Clerk?
Thank you.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
Next item is adoption of Resolution R-2024-24, resolution approving the purchase of a police vehicle from Stivers Ford, is it?
Yes.
By Chief Schenberger.
Thank you again. The Freeport Police Department is currently in need of replacing one squad car. It's actually an unmarked car, but the new squad car will replace F-25, which is utilized by the Chief of Police. F-25 is a 2015 Lincoln MKZ that was acquired via Article 36 seizure in 2016. F-25 currently has 105,000 miles. On November 8th, 2023, a squad car bid packet was posted to solicit bids. The bidding cycle ended on December 15th, 2023, and resulted in 0 bids being submitted. Staff was unable to locate any vehicles available at the state bid price within 200 miles. Staff spoke to a representative from Stivers Ford in Waukee, Iowa, who has currently one 2023 Ford Explorer at the state of Illinois bid price of $45,590. Stivers Ford will also be able to upfit this squad car for a cost of $4,753.95. The total cost of purchasing this car with the upfitting will be $50,000, $343.95. Stivers has also offered to take 2 trade-ins to reduce the cost. The vehicles the police department is looking to trade in are vehicle F-16, which is a 2011 Chevrolet Impala with 62,000 miles on it, and vehicle F-20, a 2015 Chevrolet Impala with 91,000 miles on it. Stivers has offered a trade-in value of $3,000 for F-16 and $5,000 for F-20 for a total of $8,000. This will reduce the purchase price to $42,343.95. The funding for this squad car, which would be the 3rd and final car that we purchased this year, and upfitting is provided in the fiscal year 2024 Police Department capital budget line item 331, 302, 7005, and then when this is final, if we're able to do this one, will be just over $14,000 under budget for squad cars than what we projected. So.
Do we have a motion and a second to put it on the floor? Alderman Parker?
So move. Second.
Second by Alderman Sellers. I also contacted the chief this week, and as he mentioned, when we looked at squad cars a few weeks ago or a month ago or whatever we did, they talked about 2 or 3 at that time, and the option of 3 was still out there, so it sounds like it's been a good deal. And he also brought forward that the dealership, he's received some, and the dealership has been very good.
Yes, we're really impressed with the first one we got back. Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
Thank you. Item number 15 is adoption of resolution 2024-25, agreement with Fairgram to provide grant application and services for rehabilitation, American infrastructure with sustainability and equity, the RAISE grant, presented by Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Freeport regularly pursues grant opportunities for projects to create supplemental funding toward our direct street and utility capital project needs. The United States Department of Transportation has a grant opportunity due February 28, 2024 that was just announced in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. As the Council is aware, many significant grant opportunities have very quick deadlines for submission. The U.S. DOT RAISE grant opportunity is for a potential of up to $1.5 million in grant funding towards transportation system planning that is specifically and will improve safety, environmental sustainability, quality of life, mobility, and community connectivity, economic competitiveness, and opportunity for tourism, and overall state of good repair. This notice of funding opportunity will provide the City of Freeport a good chance in obtaining this funding to perform required comprehensive street studies, pavement condition reports, street road base evaluation, required ADT transition planning and grievance matters, and master street planning. Many Freeport demographics make the city a good fit for this grant. Planning grants that are completed and approved by the US DOT will open the city up to potential implementation funding for up to $25 million in the future. Fairgram has the resources, information, expert staff to submit a very competitive application for the city and will meet the deadline before February 28, 2024. The grant fee for this application opportunity is $9,800. Funding can come from the 2024 budget, and city staff requires council approve pursuing the US DOT RAISE grant opportunity.
We have a motion and a second to put it up for discussion.
So move.
Alderman Sellers.
Second.
Alderman Parker is second. Manager Blair, would you bring up to the council what you and I had discussed when I asked you about this grant over the weekend, how much it had brought in different cases and stuff for us?
Absolutely. So this grant is for up to $1.5 million in planning, and that would qualify the city for potentially up to $25 million in street reconstruction work. So by passing, this is kind of a first step that's required before you can apply for the other grant funding. So it's, again, staff's recommendation, we move forward with this resolution to get this going.
Any other discussion? Alderman Stacy?
So the 9,800 has already been budgeted for this year?
Well, we did not forecast this particular grant coming up, but we have engineering fees that are budgeted in the general fund budget to cover things like this.
Any other discussion? Alderman Monroe.
Go ahead.
So, Manager Boyer, so these 9,800, not a lot of money, but how much other money's been set aside that you can use for projects like this?
Well, I don't have a figure right off the top of my head, but when we went through the budget planning session, when we went through the process, there were certain budget items that we added that we foresaw, and there's also some items that we have a little bit of wiggle room as far as what we budgeted for potential engineering requirements. So,
Alderman Sellers?
City Manager Boyer, so you're saying that when we approve this grant, it would help us look forward to getting $25 million, helping more on our infrastructure, on our roads and streets?
in the end, it could result in 25 million. But the first step is we have to get the 1.5 million dollar thereabout grant to do the citywide study. And once that study's done, then that makes us eligible for up to $25 million in US DOT funding to do street repair. To what extent we do, I think we're a pretty good case, and as mentioned in the memo, we meet a lot of the demographic requirements, and we are the type of community that this is tailored to help. So it's a good opportunity.
Madam Clerk?
Sellers?
Aye. Oh, sorry.
Oh, excuse me, Alderman Stacy. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to say, so we could pay the $9,800, but there's no guarantee that we would get anything.
That is always a risk, and yes, that is the case. You may not get anything. However, we've looked at this very closely, and we think we'd be a great candidate. We think we meet a lot of the requirements of the grant, and I think that it's definitely worth it.
So is this a grant we have applied for before, or is this something new?
I believe it's completely new. I don't think there's been a whole lot of US DOT grants that would apply to the local level for a street study. Maybe Darren wants to share with us some of that background.
Is this what we were just talking about?
So this program is something that has come from the Biden administration, and it's been projected that this was coming for a couple years. It is a federal grant, not a local state grant, so there's federal hoops to jump through for this. You guys challenged me to find an opportunity where we could find some grant money to pay for, we have a lot of studies that we're going to be required to do. One of them's the ADA transition plan. This project, if awarded, can pay for the transition plan. We have to do a street study. We don't really have the funds to do it. This can pay for the street study completely. Going through the grant, they call it the NOFO, the Notice of Opportunity. Freeport lines up very well with the demographics in this specific case. This is not meant for mainstream America. It's made for our small rural towns that have diversity, and we have issues with the street pavement in some of our older areas of town. This lines up very well for an opportunity. Manager Boyer explained it correctly. In order to qualify for what they call implementation money, which is up to $25 million, you have to do the planning first. So you apply for the planning grant of up to $1.5 million, you do the work, you turn it in. This is like a 3-year window that they have open for this. The problem with going after the implementation money, and some people will, if you don't have all your ducks in a row, it doesn't fast track you for implementation money, and I don't think we would really have a chance of getting much of anything without getting our street condition reports and showing how many of our streets are in utterly, beyond repair shape at this point. And I'm honest with you, I have searched and searched and searched for grants for Freeport for roads. I haven't found anything that's better than this. And as always, when we bring grant opportunities to the council, unless Farrah Graham and my team think that we have at least a 50-50 chance of getting it, which is about the best you're going to get with a grant, I would never bring it to you. I don't believe in wasting money on grants that we don't have any chance to get. So,
Alderman Sellers?
At this point, we need money. We got to go for it. We got to go for it, take a chance, because we need the money.
Yeah, and our grant writer, Bridget Stocks, and her team, they're very talented in writing submissions. She's one that I spent a lot of time with when this came out. It's a very quick turnaround, too. I mean, you get 30 days for a grant. Not many cities will have their ducks in a row. Honestly, with meeting cycles and stuff, most cities our size have one meeting a month. So, a lot of people will not be able to approve this and turn it around. And there also will have to be a resolution passed for it as well, just like every other grant we've gone after. So I think the odds are in good shape that we'll get the planning money, and then, maybe we'll have some help from above for some of that implementation money.
Appreciate it. Thank you for the information. Now, Madam Clerk.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
Monroe?
Aye.
Simmons? Parker?
Aye.
And Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
Move forward to item number 16, adoption of a resolution R 2425, adopting a language assistance program, presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Alderperson Clem. So this goes back, I spoke earlier about a grant that the city had applied for $140,000 with the Rural Development Housing Preservation Grant. And the U.S. Department of Agriculture responded to us and wanted us to have a Human Relations Commission as well as a policy on language assistance. So we worked with Lorena Rothel, our planner. She worked with the U.S. Department of Agriculture to create their required 4-factor analysis, which we presented. It was attached. It comes down to sum up, is that the U.S. Department of Agriculture wants to make sure that all people in this city have access and understand this grant. So a couple of highlights in here that they want is knowing and listing how many bilingual or what languages, trilingual, et cetera, staff employees have, and then also listing the resources, which is also in this plan, that people can have access to know that this grant funding would be available, as well as any other type of public hearings. So with that in mind, staff is recommending approval of the resolution to accept this language plan.
Could we get a motion in a second so we can have discussion?
move.
Alderman Sellers. So move.
Oh. You got a second?
Yeah, Alderman Simmons?
Second
Okay.
it. Did you get a second?
Oh, you can second it, that's fine.
I'll second it.
Discussion. Seeing no discussion, Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons,
Aye.
Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 6-0.
Thank you. Moving ahead for approval of bids. There was a bid opening held on January 31st, 2024 at 9 o'clock for 6 residential demolitions presented by Director Duckman. You're getting your work out tonight.
Well, thank you, Alderperson Clem. It's been fun. So looking at this bid opening, it was held on it was opened on January 31st, and it was advertised on January 14th. And at the bid opening, we received bids from 5 contractors for the demolition of 6 properties. And want to make note here, it was mentioned before, this is for the demolition asbestos abatement, and all 6 of these properties are part of the FEMA pre-disaster mitigation program, which is commonly known as the buyout on the east side of from flood damaged properties. And so as a result of this bid opening, staff is recommending that we did an analysis, and it was presented in the memorandum. We're recommending a total cost of $65,600, and it's going to be broken down to Albert & Son Excavating or Albert & Son Earthworks for $21,000. And that would be for the demolition of 26 North Sheridan and 534 East Crocker. And then $44,600 would go to Kleckner. And that is for the demolition of 109 North Wilbur, 120 North Wilbur, 124 North Wilbur, and 625 East Crocker. And staff recommends approval of this proposal.
We have a motion and a second. Motion from Alderman Parker, second
Second.
from Alderman Sellers. Any discussion? Alderman Parker.
Yes, after I got the memo from him, I went and drove by all 11, which counts the next resolution. All 11 places, they do need to come down badly, so I'm looking forward to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Sellers.
And I just want clarification. This money comes out of that mitigation grant. It doesn't touch that $300,000 we have for the other.
Yes, sorry. Yes,
Thank you.
you are correct. All 6 of these properties have been approved for the pre-disaster mitigation grant, and then we will seek funding from FEMA for that.
Okay, thank you.
I have to take a second and congratulate Director Duckman's department for the way for years you've put out the bidding on this, where you can actually do a little selective moving back and forth on who was low bid on it. That creates a big difference in the pricing on this, and we appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The bid is approved 6-0.
Item number 18 is approval of the balance of the other houses on this, but bid opening on January 31st, 2024 at 9:50 for 5 residential demolitions presented by Director Duckman.
Thank you, Alderperson Clem. So this bid opening was also held on January 31st, immediately following, or at 9:15 from the previous bid opening. And this bid opening was, or the proposal, the RFP went out on January 14th, and staff received we received proposals from 5 different contractors. And based on that analysis, staff is recommending we move forward with proposals from Albert & Son, Earthworks, and Kleckner. And the total cost of this would be $60,690, broken down to the following. Albert & Son would receive $33,200 for the demolition of 634 East Stevenson Street, 18 South Lewis, and 34 South Hooker. And Kleckner would receive $27,490 for the demolition of 703, 705 East Stevenson, and 516 South McKinley. On this particular, in this particular situation, 4 of the 5 properties are going to be are part of the FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant. 516 South McKinley has just been approved, is not part of the FEMA pre-disaster mitigation grant. However, we just received approval to move it forward through the IDA grant, which is that $300,000 Strong Community Program grant. So these are all going to be grant funded demolitions.
Do we have a motion and a second? Alderman Parker?
Second.
Alderman Monroe? Second. Any discussion? Madam Clerk?
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Monroe,
Aye.
Simmons, Parker,
Aye.
and Stacy.
Aye.
The low bidders are approved 6-0.
Thank you very much. Next is report by department heads. Director Richter,
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Director Duckman, if you got anything left.
Nope, I'm spent, nothing else.
Okay. Chief Miller,
No report this evening.
Chief Schenberger,
I have no report, thank you.
Librarian.
I just want to talk about our current series. Our Lectures in American History series is starting tomorrow. This year, our presenters are Ed Finch, Josh Boast, Alan Wenzel, Martin Quirk, Andy Dvorak, and Jim Gitz. So if you are interested, go to our website. But tomorrow's is Ed Finch doing the Prairie State and United States Navy. And it's a presentation on that, and you're welcome to join us at 6:30 p.m. at the library.
Thank you very much. Council members, starting out with, excuse me,
You got IT.
Public Works, IT.
Public Works, Darren, if you haven't had enough yet. Thank you very much. I'm sorry. IT. Nothing tonight. Okay, we're cool. City Manager's report is first.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to address concerns about the integrity of the selection process for Locust Avenue resurfacing project. It's important to clarify that the decision was neither arbitrary or unilateral. The county gave general parameters. Based on those parameters, in part, staff recommended Locust. The recommendation also came through analysis by our staff, who considered factors such as infrastructure condition, traffic volume, and roads proximity to school. Recommendations also considered that the 7th Ward has received the least amount of reinvestment over the last 5 years at $1.34 million, compared with $9 million in the 5th Ward and $14 million in the 3rd Ward, and the other wards had quite a bit. Additionally, this recommendation to the county, was to the county for a request for proposal, and that was given to them. And it was based on the professional assessment of the community's needs and the resources available from the county. The process included proper vetting and received endorsements from the county board, highlighted in its legitimacy and the collective consensus on its appropriateness. This approach was rooted in a commitment to serving the community's best interest, support by expert evaluation, and formal approval. In addition, I would like to make the following announcement. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency has granted complete funding for the Phase 3 for the Freeport Lead Service Line Replacement Program. This vital project is dedicated to removing potential dangerous lead service lines to safeguarding our community from risks of lead in drinking water. The program made substantial progress in its initial phase, with Phase 1 replacing 327 and Phase 2 replacing 838 lead service lines, significantly diminishing the prevalence of lead services in our water system. Initially, the IEPA provided $2.2 million necessary of the 3.1 for Phase 3, with the expectation the city would contribute the remaining $900,000. However, the IEPA enhanced their support an additional $500,000 last summer, further supporting our mission. Now with the EPA's latest pledge to fully fund Phase 3, which includes an anticipated 400 lead service line replacements, we aim to decrease the count of remaining lead services to just 400 after Phase 3 is complete, and this achievement represents a crucial advancement in our ongoing dedication to public health and environment. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Alderman Sellers, council announcements, new business?
No, I have nothing.
The only announcement I have in Ward 1, we have a tentative date of February 27th for the neighborhood watch, since it was moved for bad weather the last time, but I will keep in touch with everybody. Alderman Monroe.
Nothing tonight.
Alderman Simmons.
No.
Alderman Parker.
Nothing tonight.
Alderman Stacy.
Yes, I just want to say that I'm grateful for any street we're able to get funding and successfully repaired. But I was a little disappointed because I felt that things that were being presented were not totally truthful. Because there was more than one street presented for the $500,000 we received for the county. And that other street was Carroll. Me feeling like Carroll is in worse shape than Locust, I wanted Carroll. I spoke with a couple other older people, and they too felt that Carroll was in worse shape and would have loved to have the opportunity to choose. However, we were not given both streets, we were only given one. And I will even go as far as to say Carroll would have needed a water main. And where would we have gotten the $200,000 for that? Where there's a will, there's a way. For future reference, I ask that when opportunity allowed for there to be a choice, a choosing of one street over another, that the entire council be involved in making that choice. Thank you.
Tom, can I follow up on that?
Alderman Parker.
I was under the impression, and maybe I was wrong, that the county's given us $500,000 and they picked Locust. I didn't know Carroll was a choice.
No, I went to the council meeting, the county board meeting, and I just asked the question, out of all the streets in Freeport, why Locust?
I appreciate the information. I did not, I thought we didn't have a choice.
And Mr. Scott Helm said, I never answer questions during public comments, but I'm gonna answer this one.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Enough discussion there on that. We aren't getting the who did what or whatever. And if we remember, our jobs here as alder people actually are to guide, support, and vote on things that are brought to us and help do planning and everything for the council. Manager Bloyer, the mayor, the directors are available, but I understand that due to some communications lately that there's discussion being done on taking a look at everything being run through the mayor or city manager, period, which it's not our job to micromanage the employees of the city of Freeport. If we have an employee that we don't think is doing their work, then we need to talk about that and do something about it. But we aren't going to discuss it here on the council floor. Thank you.
I just want to say, bring us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's all we're asking
Gonna move
for.
forward now. We have, is there anybody that would like to do public comment? Yes, sir. And you, excuse me, Dovey has one first, and then you can go next. Thank you very much.
This is an email that was received from Eric Quick. Good evening. There has been an ongoing effort by myself and other citizens to call on the Freeport City Council to hold Alderman James Monroe accountable for the accusations he made against me and the other childish behavior he displayed both inside and outside of this chamber. It has been said that there is nothing that can be done short of Mr. Monroe being charged with a felony. There's no government entity that doesn't have a clause for removal of an official. The following is what the codified ordinances say about disciplinary action. I understand if you aren't familiar with it, considering the failure of the council to remember the rules for what constitutes a quorum this past fall. Freeport Codified Ordinances, Chapter 220, Section 8, Rules, Punishment, and Expulsion. The City Council shall determine its own rules of proceedings, punish its members for disorderly conduct, and with the concurrence of 2/3 of all the alderpersons elected, may expel a member, but not a second time for the same offense. It's become crystal clear to me that this council is not willing to do that. They are co-signing such behavior through inaction and silence. Some apparently have even been told not to say anything by string pullers behind the scenes. Losing the trust and support of a few citizens is apparently not worth making waves for them, so be it. To my fellow citizens of Freeport, 9 times out of 10, you might feel like this council has your best interest in mind. But I've learned that it's that one time that you need to feel it the most that you discover they are only thinking about themselves. I urge the voters to consider that when they vote in future, I urge the voters to consider that when they vote in future council members. I'm asking that no more public comments be submitted by anyone on my behalf regarding this matter. I no longer wish James Monroe's defamatory words against me to be a distraction from the other issues that affect the thousands of other Freeport residents. I'm sure Mr. Monroe will be also relieved to not have the distraction, as he apparently has other legal matters to worry about. Perhaps you will all find your voices after those play out. Do better. Eric Quick, Invisible Citizen, Freeport.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please state your name
My name is Marcus Signer, and I would like to say to the guy who's doing the audio, can we please get better audio? We hear everyone on YouTube can hear everything perfect from the board members, but when it's our public comments, you never hear it. It's so low every time. It's been like that forever. Can you please work on that? And the other thing I'm saying is, I see we have a new chief sheriff. How you feel? You think you've been doing good? Because we're seeing a lot of bodies coming up around here. Plenty. Ain't nothing getting done. But once again, it's when it's I'm white and black, but from what I'm seeing, it's kind of the white side. If you know that person or on these board members, you're gonna get that spot. If you're plugged in Andy, Jody, Stovall's wife, that's how he got that. Who's he been working with? He's been working with Steve Stovall's wife for many years as a detective, and Summers was Steve Stovall's ex-wife. Summers was married to her first. So this guy gets put out, and then this guy comes in who's working with him.
Time out. This has got nothing to do with
It still
conservation.
does. What
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
indicating, what I'm saying is it's kind
That's
of
enough.
who you know. It's kind of who you know. That's who's getting the
That's enough.
spots. That's public comment. I'm
Personal
being
attacks
respectful.
whatsoever.
I'm being respectful. But he's been working with her, and now Summers is gone. Someone that he could never be close to. Just saying. I've been through it. The way this bond is now, they just charge people and keep them in there. Like, get a violent case, you're going to be stuck. And I'm steady seeing it with the wrong people. And people are steady coming up, killing, and other things like that. Nothing is changing. But Mr. Sellers can't get any type of, not movement, but type of plans around here. But we still got to give the people to, I can say in 3 years when Steve Stovall's out of there, Nick Potnack's going to take his spot. It's simple. It's you know who's going to get it. They're friends. It's getting crazy. You guys talk about you want money in Stevenson County. Let's add some trails like Wisconsin for ATVs or something. That millions of dollars. Everything we come up with to get money, they deny it. No matter what it is, we can't get anything. We don't got a racetrack gone. I mean, that was with taxes, whatever. But the only thing we got, I could take my kids is probably to the steam trainer when the fair comes, and the fair ain't even right no more. It's just crazy. But then everyone wants to get praised that she put this thing downtown just to have like a cover-up, like you saved the day. That's nothing. Let's save these lives out here. What about by the east side? That bridge is terrible. The holes all through the bridge. And then if we do an insurance thing, they're not gonna pay for it. We got to pay for that. I've seen several people. So let's stop picking friends and stuff like that. We're getting there because it ain't like there's people who's going out for judges. It ain't just here you're judge because no one's going out. We're coming. It's changing. But let's stop putting people who you know in office and Andy Chesney's friends and all that. It's crazy. Let's work on that. Can we work on that, Chief? Stop some bodies.
Thank you. Your
Thank
time's
you.
up. I appreciate it. Okay, next item. Is there anybody else for public comment? Next, we need a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
I got to read it first.
Oh, sorry.
Pursuant to 5 IL 120/2/C/2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees and their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules, or one or more classes of employees. To return to open session. Do we have a motion? We did have.
So move.
Sellers and Monroe. Thank you. Vote. Aye.
Simmons. Parker.
Aye.
And Stacy. Motion passes 6-0.